So the walk, Kevin's last walk, a father's final journey with his son. How did that idea all come about? Well, in my tiny little mind, here's how all that went. Kevin always talked about wanting to move to Montana someday and buy a ranch. I'd grown up in Montana. We'd been up there on vacation a number of times. We had property up there. And Kevin always said that if I would just build a house on that property, he could go up and house sit for me. I believe that some of Kevin's happiest times were in Montana. Kevin's favorite movie was Lonesome Dove. In that movie, at the end of the movie, not to give it away to everybody, but Tommy Lee Jones agrees to carry the body of Robert Duvall back to Texas to bury him where he was the happiest. So that's basically where it came from. In the movie, he did it on horseback. I figured that if I tried to do it on horseback, somebody'd probably get killed. So I decided to walk. I averaged about 90 miles a week, went through 5 pairs of shoes. Bev met me about every 3 miles. It took me a while to figure out that it wasn't a race. I didn't need to walk that fast. I could take breaks whenever I wanted, which, like I said, was about every 3 miles. I would stop and maybe change shoes or change socks, get a bite to eat. If I was real tired, I might take a nap. The people you meet along the road are just so cool. I mean, as a society, we think that most Americans are rather jaded. And when you get out on the road, you discover that they really are friendly. There's just a lot of nice people that would stop every day, and if it was raining, there would be lots of people that would stop. There were some ladies near a school. I was near a school at one point. They actually brought me brownies and milk one morning for a snack. You know, there was the Flagstaff police officer who stopped. I was probably 60 or 70 miles north of Page at that point, and he stopped and asked me if I was the guy who had spoke at Flagstaff High School a few days earlier, and I told him that I was. And he said, "Well, I don't know what you said to my son, but I just wanted to tell you thank you, because whatever you said, it hit home with him, and he seems to be a changed young man." There was people who would stop and just ask what we were doing. There was other people who knew what we were doing and just wanted to stop and tell us their own story. There was a guy in Montana who stopped and walked up to me and gave me a hug and started crying and telling me about his son who was involved with alcohol, and he was just scared to death that his son was going to end up like Kevin. The other thing, the other interesting thing on the walk, you know, people ask me, well, what kind of things did you see? Well, in general, drivers were very polite. They would pull over. Really not much problem there. When you get out on the road, people just, you know, they give you a wide berth. I have to say there was one that scared me, and I've never forgotten this. I was just north of Salt Lake City, and I saw an RV come over the hill towards me, and the driver appeared to be distracted because he was moving all over the road. And as he got closer, it didn't appear he was going to get over and give me any room. And I realized that he had a dog, a mid-sized dog, not a little poodle, but a mid-sized dog walking around on the dash of his RV. As soon as I realized that he had a dog on the dash, I jumped in the ditch and tried to stay as far off of the road as I could, because I didn't want to have anything to do with that. Other interesting things, you find a lot of stuff in the ditch. I made a point of stopping and picking up every nail and screw that I found in the road and throwing it in the ditch. And by the way, those black straps that people use that have the hooks on each end to strap down loads and stuff, yeah, they don't work very well. I saw hundreds and hundreds of those laying in the ditch. So if you're going to strap down a load, don't use those black straps because it appears they don't work because they were all over in the ditch between Arizona and Montana. You know, we had great days when the weather was nice and I felt good and could just cruise along. Truth is, there was a lot of days where it was pretty obnoxious, raining and cold and windy. And I've been asked a number of times, is there any point in the walk where you thought about giving up? Never thought about giving up. But I would say that the low point of the walk was just south of Flagstaff. We had driven the route, so we knew basically what we were looking at, and apparently I missed a pretty good sized hill. It's probably a couple thousand feet elevation gain, and it was towards the end of a 20-mile day, and I found myself talking to myself by the time I got to the top of that hill. You know, I just didn't understand how I could have possibly missed this hill and didn't know, you know, it's one thing if you know a hill is coming, but when you think you're just going to be kind of going over rolling hills and all of a sudden the road turns decidedly uphill and doesn't back off, you know you've missed something. And I have to say that was definitely the low point of the journey. That doesn't mean there were a lot of other times when I would call Bev on the radio and ask her how close we were to the top of the hill. And in her usual way, she'd say, "You're almost there, you're almost there." And truth is, I wasn't almost there. There was still a lot of hill left. So she did a good job with that stuff.